Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about the film Love is a Racket, or in the UK, it was called Such Things Happen, which is from 1932. Part of William Wellman's pre-code period, which was very prolific. He was making sometimes 4 to 5 films a year. A gossip columnist named James Russell, or Jimmy Russell, played by Douglas Fairbanks Jr., who is going out with this aspiring actress named Mary, played by Frances D. And she is trying to move up the social ladder and get more bigger parts. And he helps her out, and then he finds out she has all sorts of money trouble because she's not good with figures, Jimmy. She's not good with money or figures. He tries to take care of it. He's not really trying to find out the truth about things as a newspaperman. He's a gossip columnist. He hangs out at night spots, finds out the gossip, goes home, writes about it, goes to bed, and sleeps in all day. So he has a very relaxed life, but he gets in all sorts of trouble when he's trying to help his wonderful little girlfriend out and try to take care of her financial debts while an evil gangster named Eddie Shaw is trying to take care of him and kill him off because he's sick of his crap. There's a story about the gang upping milk prices, and he just doesn't care. He tries to kill stories. I like the pre-code era. I like the early 30s, and sometimes I will just like watching films to see the period and see some Art Deco and kind of see what this film represents is movie New York, not real New York. I don't really think it was shot in real New York. It looked like it was shot on mostly sets, and they're pretty amazing sets. It's probably the best film I've seen Wellman shoot not using any documentary location cinematography. This is all set stuff, and it's shot by Sidney Hicksox. I think they made a well-made film. I don't really like this movie so much. A lot of people find this to be a great B pre-code movie. I like Douglas Fairbanks Jr. as Jimmy Russell. I thought he was good at playing this fast-talking guy. And I like the actor who played his friend, Lee Tracy, who's played by Stanley Fisk. Actually, him and his group of friends, which are played by Lee Tracy and Anne DeVark, I think, have a good chemistry together. And if it had just been about those three mostly, I think this film probably would have carried a little more weight with me. I like Douglas Fairbanks' performance despite the character, but I think it's somewhat of an empty story, and the fact that his girlfriend, and why the film is called Love is a Racket, although I think Such Things Happen is a much better title, so I wish they'd just go with that. Frances D, who plays his girlfriend Mary, that's just one of the most sexist roles I've ever seen. And I know at this point Wellman had been married twice. They both did not work out very well. And I think he didn't mind making a film like this. I don't know if he really would have made a film like Love is a Racket after he met his wife Dottie. They had 7 kids together. They're very much in love. I don't know if he'd really be doing such a film like this. And I think this just shows he was a younger director then. He had a different attitude about love. I mean, there's a lot of kind of things in here. There are hallmarks of what Wellman does. You know, there's practical jokes. Wellman likes practical jokes. He's kind of a wild guy. He was Wild Bill Wellman. You also see the relationship between Stanley and Jimmy, which is kind of going throughout the film but doesn't really come in towards the end, but it does remind you of the relationship of the two friends and other men's women, and Wings, and the Public Enemy. And there's definitely hallmarks in there, and I kind of like it, I guess, kind of as an okay Wellman film. But its whole stance on love I found to be really kind of sexist and limiting, and I didn't really understand why that held as much weight as it did. I guess I get why it held as much weight as it did, but this is no Sweet Smell of Success. It's a different era, certainly, but I don't really get what it's trying to say other than those ladies are shifty. I really had a hard time kind of getting into this film. There's certain things they do when they make movie New York that has kind of this cool 30s kind of Dream Factory feel to it, and I really like that, and I wouldn't actually mind seeing it again. It's hard to find. It's not on DVD. TCM plays it at random, and I was lucky enough to DVR it, and that's how I saw it. I understand how Douglas Fairbanks Jr. got involved because William Wellman was actually discovered by Douglas Fairbanks Sr. when he was a professional hockey player. Douglas Fairbanks Sr. liked him and said he should get into the movies, and then after World War I, he did. He even flew his plane onto Douglas Fairbanks' lawn, supposedly, and since Douglas Fairbanks Jr. apparently had writer and director approval, and he obviously knew Wellman because his dad liked him so much. Apparently he thought Wellman was a little wild and a little crazed, and you can tell Wellman was kind of having a lot of fun as a director. I think this is way better directed than the actual movie itself. There's a whole section towards the end where he's talking to these two guys, and he's talking and their backs turn to the camera. And I think I read something in his book where like he just shot it that way because he liked that idea. Wellman always came up with these odd ways to shoot sequences. I mean, I think if I saw it as an executive, I'm like, why am I looking at someone's back for so long? I can understand that, but it gives it kind of, when they do turn around, it's like Wellman's good at withholding stuff from the audience, because when he does give it to you, you're like, oh wow, this is like impressive. And if you just showed it to you right away, that whole sequence probably wouldn't be as interesting in a little odd way. Wellman has that control over an audience. This film doesn't really get going, doesn't really get really good until the third act and towards the end, and there's kind of a murder plot and there's a lot of rain and becomes super stylized. The first two acts of this film, I just don't really like this movie that much. I mean, I kind of understand why it's not available, because like it's not really that notable other than for being a part of this period. I liked when Jimmy Russell looks down a building and you see like these small miniature cars in this movie New York going by, and I like that element to it. But I mean, is that enough to really like a movie? A lot of blog entries I've read about this film have all said, you know, this is a great example of the period. I just don't feel that way. It feels so much more emptier, and it's kind of a weird film to watch for Wellman, because I've gotten used to these Wellman characters who are working class, they're grittier, they really stand for something. And I mean, I guess Jimmy Russell kind of does. He doesn't really. He's kind of flippant, and he's very wealthy, and he doesn't seem to work very hard. I think Wellman is a good enough director to kind of get past that, but it felt like he had enough aesthetics to get this to work, and you know, this was his good friend's son, so he wasn't going to direct a lousy picture, and I don't think he did, but it almost feels like his heart's not in it. You're not really getting the soul of William Wellman, you're just getting the fun of William Wellman, and I think I prefer the soul more than the fun, but the fun of William Wellman can still do a lot and still can make a pretty decent picture. Wellman, he's all right at doing some glamorous stuff, but I think he's better when it's really about a relationship between two guys like he had with Stanley and Jimmy. Not like the character that Frances D plays as Mary. She just doesn't work, and it doesn't feel like she's properly developed. It almost feels like Wellman doesn't know entirely what to do with her. Like, he's not good at making actresses, you know, have put on pretty makeup and be glamorous. He really wants them to do their job and like get down and dirty, and like, you know, I think the Stanwyck films he did around this period, I think he made this in between too, like So Big and Purchase Price or something. He made it around both those times, and he's like, those feel like they have a lot more authenticity, and this feels a little faker. Wellman, he liked to go to parties and stuff, but I think a grittier guy is really who he was. So if you have seen Love is a Racket and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments, and subscribe if you would like to. The next film will be The Robin Hood of El Dorado. I'm actually kind of jumping around chronologically because I have to get things off my DVR, and you probably know by now I moved, so I kind of had to get rid of all my DVR stuff, so I had to review these films. So the next film will be The Robin Hood of El Dorado, and I hope to see you then. Actually, interesting enough is that the Jimmy Russell character was intended for James Cagney, and he didn't do it for whatever reason. I think maybe Jimmy Cagney, you know, he can repair a lot of stinkers. His performance might have given this film a little more fun, and I think even, you know, Wellman would still be able to get this to work a little better with Jimmy Cagney, but unfortunately he didn't do it, and no one really seems to know why, and Douglas Fairbanks Jr. did. I don't think Douglas Fairbanks Jr. is as good of an actor as James Cagney, but he's a decent enough actor that he gets this role to work for him.